Please, recently, information has appeared that Chinese banks are no longer accepting payments from Russian banks. Please tell me, have you discussed this issue with the Chinese leader? If yes, is there any result? And was it possible to agree on a possible payment scheme that would not be affected by Western sanctions? Thank you. Tertiary sanctions or sanctions against third countries. Participants in economic activities, of course. They are doubly or triply illegitimate. Because if they are adopted without a decision of the UN Security Council, then they are generally illegitimate, and in relation to third countries, this is completely beyond the bounds of common sense. By the way, such sanctions are applied by the same Americans or Europeans, and even against their allies, mutually. Europeans do not apply sanctions against Americans, but Americans do accept such sanctions against European economic operators. And they often take them to their logical conclusion, not only in relation to Russia, but also in relation to other situations and other countries. This is practice. And the Europeans swallow it all, once again confirming their vassal dependence on the overseas sovereign. Well, God be with them, and the fact that such decisions are made, of course, they cause direct damage to the world economy, not only to those countries in relation to which such decisions are made, and in relation to the economic operators of these countries, but also to the world economy as a whole, both energy and other areas activities in the economic field. First of all, issues related to payments are discussed at the level of economic participants. Solutions are possible, they exist, of course, one way or another. They must be supported at the state level. I hope that it will be so. The motives behind the behavior of large financial institutions can be understood. No one wants to suffer any losses due to the illegal actions of the US authorities. But I have to say, I already said this, and I want to repeat. This is a great stupidity and a huge mistake on the part of the American political elites, because they are causing enormous damage to themselves. They are undermining confidence in the dollar. And gradually they are curtailing the position of the dollar as a world payment and reserve currency, although they have a huge gain from this position of the dollar. First there was the Bretton Woods system. Then they abandoned the gold support for the dollar and switched to the Jamaican system. What is it based on? It is based only on the printing press, or, let us say nobly, on the strength and quality of the American economy. Yes, it's true. And all the countries of the world trust this American economy, its power, and its stability. And they take these pieces of paper. But, at first glance, this gives a huge and inexplicable advantage to the American economy and financial system. They can also be assessed directly, in certain numbers. Well, according to our experts, this is over $10 trillion. This is not money earned and fallen from the sky due to the use of the dollar as a reserve world currency. But in general, the obligations of the American monetary system to the rest of the world are approximately $53.4 trillion. But as, for political reasons, the United States authorities undermine confidence in the dollar, they weaken their main, basic, most important instrument of their power, the dollar itself. They cause irreparable damage to themselves. That is, to put it trivially in our well-known sayings, they are simply sawing off the branch on which they are sitting. This is terrible stupidity. But they can't stop. There are disadvantages for us in that we are forced to look for other opportunities. But there are also advantages. Because a situation in which one country dictates its will to the rest of the world, including in the political sphere, using financial and economic instruments, is unacceptable. And all the countries of the world, I assure you, you only need to look at the volume of reserves, how they decrease in dollars. The whole world is reacting to this. I think this process is inevitable. Of course, we are moving away from the dollar. And this is the right process. It is associated with certain costs and difficulties, but in general, this is correct when we talk about switching to payments in national currencies or creating some other payment instruments with other countries. This process is underway, it has begun, and it cannot be stopped. Vladimir Vladimirovich, let me return to the topic of Ukraine and some Western initiatives. You have already mentioned that yesterday you and Xi Jinping discussed this issue at length. Please tell me, was the topic of Macron's initiative to declare an Olympic truce raised? In your opinion, is such an Olympic truce possible now? Or is this another attempt by the West to lure Russia into a trap, especially against a backdrop of military successes? Yes. President Xi Jinping told me about this. We discussed this topic with him. We just touched on this topic. What do I think about this? First, these principles of Olympism, including the principles of the Olympic truce, are very correct. It is no coincidence that they have been developed by the world community over the centuries. True, rarely did anyone adhere to this principle, with the exception of ancient Greece, but in general this idea itself is very correct and constructive. The question is different. The question is that it is today's international sports officials who themselves violate the principles of the Olympic Charter. They politicize sport. And this is completely unacceptable. Bearing in mind the purpose of sport as a platform for communication between people and for finding compromises during this communication and on other, including political issues, they themselves violate these principles, including in relation to Russia. They do not allow our athletes to compete at the Olympic Games with their banner, with their flag and with their national music, with the anthem. They violate this for us. But they want us, in turn, to follow the rules that they dictate to us. Does this occur to anyone? Does this correspond to some basic standards of justice? Nothing like this. They themselves violate, and they demand compliance from us. Well, dear friends, we won't get far this way. No one has ever agreed on any issues this way. In order to demand or expect something from others, you first need to follow these rules yourself. But in general, of course, the sport is developing. It will continue to develop. I don't know how the Olympic movement will feel today under the leadership of such officials. If they put money at the forefront and make it the main principle of their activities, as in any commercial enterprise whose main goal is to make a profit, if they put this at the forefront, then nothing good is foreseen in the future of the Olympic movement. See, it has already become just a commercial corporation. What is everything built on? Everything is built on receiving money from sponsors, for broadcasting from large information companies. In general, this is a whole enterprise for making profit from sports competitions. Still, the principle of Olympism lies elsewhere, in humanitarian principles.